AlephBet. Last week we introduced the new letter Tzaddik, and so its number is 90. It's called Tzaddik, and its pronunciation was with a TZ sound or a TS, but usually with the TZ. This is the word. This is the letter from which we get the word tzaddik. Okay, so tzaddik. So let's do the AlephBet. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samet, Ayin-Peh, Tzadik. Do it again. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samet, Ayin-Peh, Tzadik. Let's do the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay. We're going to finish up Ayin tonight and go into Peh. It won't take us long. We covered most of Ayin last week. We've been on it 2 weeks, so a little bit more on Ayin, and then on to Peh. Before we get deep into discussion, we are coming to the end of the AlephBet. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters left, and closer to the end, it'll go a little bit quicker actually. But saying that, y'all have a few weeks to make a decision if you want to start an advanced class or if you're done with it. Either way is fine with me. If you want to go to the advanced class and but what I would do, the last class I threw into the advanced class and they started it all over again. But I don't want to have to do that again, because then the ones who have been there for a couple of years, they feel like they're just going in circles and spinning their wheels. So what I would do, if y'all want to do an advanced class, we'll do an advanced class on Thursday night. And then if there's the interest to have another beginner's class, some of the ones who dropped out have said that they had to drop out for various circumstances, not by desire, but because things came up, health issues and different things came up, business issues. So they've been following on the YouTube videos, but they've expressed a desire to try it again. So we'll see how, if a class makes from that. Then we'll move that class to another night, and y'all can continue on Thursday nights. But that, again, I leave that up to you. Y'all vote and decide what you want to do, or talk to each other and talk to one another and find out what you want to do. If you want to do it, great, we'll do it. I love teaching, and I'm always glad to teach. So if y'all want to go on into advanced, basically what the advanced is, it's not real super advanced. You learn the vowels and start learning noun properties, adjective properties, these kinds of things, how the sentence structures work, because it's not the same as English. There's quite a few differences. So, but in that, we give you what do you call it? Words. We put words up on the board for you to sound out and to try to learn, and that apply to that lesson and those kinds of things. And if you want, we can, the other class does an hour of advanced grammar, and then we do an hour of the Tree of Life. If you want to do that, that's fine. If you don't want to do that, that's fine too. If you just want to focus on the grammar, that's great. Most people find the Tree of Life pretty compelling, pretty interesting, because it explains a lot of things of what we know and understand. It explains how we're supposed to act, why we're supposed to act in certain ways and do certain things. And so basically it's an explanation of how if you would, how God works within himself, how he works within us, how we work within him, how we work within the kingdom, what's our responsibilities and these kinds of things. Again, all of that is up to you. I wanted to throw that out to you tonight so you have some weeks to think about it and decide what you want to do. And like I said, don't think that if you want to do it, that's great. I'll be glad to do it. I love doing this. If you don't want to do it, don't think that I'll get my feelings hurt. I won't, because that'll give me my Thursday nights free to do something else. So I'll go in another direction. So either way, that's great with me. Okay, so I'll leave the decision totally up to you. Y'all decide what you want to do. All right, having said that, the table is clear. I freaked out the advanced class several weeks ago. I told them to clear their desk for a test. What? You didn't tell us. All right, so we're talking about the letter Ayin. Everyone say Ayin. Ayin. And we discussed Ayin. We've done this for 2 weeks, so we'll do it again. Ayin means I. Okay? So if you see the pictograph, you see it's kind of like an eye. Okay? You've got the circle within the circle. So it's the idea of an eye. We spoke last week concerning the Ayin. These are the 2 eyes. How many eyes do we have? We have 2 eyes. Why? Perspective, depth, perception, these kinds of things. So if you have 1 eye, that's good. If you have 2 eyes, that's better. That's best. Okay? If you have 1 eye, you get the picture. If you have 2 eyes, you get the perspective. That's very important. This is one of the issues in religion, having the proper perspective. This is why we go into what Judaism says. What does Judaism teach? What do the rabbis say here and there? What did the sages say about this or about that? Because we are looking for, we get the picture more or less, but we need the perception, we need the depth of it. This is why it's very, very important to put Yeshua back into, get him, he's not a white American or a British blonde-haired, blue-eyed person, you know, speaks with a British accent. He was an Israeli. And he spoke Hebrew, Aramaic, probably some Greek, some Latin. He was able to converse with Pilate, and Pilate was not known to be a Hebrew speaker. So he was able to converse. So he had some identity there, but he was an Israeli. He was a Jew. He was a Jew. He agreed with, in spite of what we hear in church, he agreed with much of the Prushim, much of the Pharisees. There were some Pharisees with whom he took issue. Actually, he did not take that much issue even with the Pharisees. Most of his problem came from the Sadducees. Watch, if you have a chance, if you want, if you desire. I'm not going to demand you to. But my message on the resurrection of Yeshua on YouTube, it's about the 4th video now down. If you watch that, we discuss much about that. Because in raising from the dead, Yeshua literally threw into a tizzy the Sadducee party. First, the week before, he raises Lazarus from the dead in front of everybody. And there are Pharisees and Sadducees standing there watching as he raises. The priest sent witnesses, sent people down to check up on this guy. And in front of all of them, he raises Lazarus from the dead. The next week, they execute him. And actually, what's striking is this is actually when they decided to kill him. We can't let this guy keep going because look at what he's doing. So they decided to. That's when they decided to put him to death. We have to put this guy to death. We have to get rid of this guy because he had literally destroyed the Sadducee party with that one act. Now on top of that, not only do they say we're going to put him to death, they say, and let's kill Assad as well. Well, the guy's already died once, and he's back. So this is what happens when your brain takes you down these paths of self-centeredness and these paths that are unholy and everything. If you wonder why criminals act stupidly, I don't know, it's because the mind goes on a bent. Sin does this, perversion does this to the mind. And so this is why a lot of times you see people acting a certain way and you say, how in the world can they do that? Well, it's because they are perverted, they're warped. And so their brain takes them in that direction. So they're going to kill Assad after Yeshua's already raised him from the dead. They're going to kill him again.
And the reason why it was problematic is because they didn't believe in the resurrection.
Correct, and that's the issue. That's the issue. They're one of their main pillars. They were Torah only. They were Torah only. They did not believe in the Talmud. They did not believe in the oral Torah. So all they believed in was the Torah. They also rejected the prophets. They also rejected the writings. They were Torah only. The Shomroni, the Samaritans, were that way and are still that way to this day. There are still Samaritans who live in Israel today, and they only accept Torah. They reject everything else. So, because of that, they did not believe in angels. They did not believe in angelic beings. Why?
They didn't believe in the spiritual realm.
They did not believe in heaven. They did not believe in hell. They did not believe in the resurrection of the dead. They did not believe in Mashiach, that there was a Messiah. They believed none of that. Why? Because it's not in the Torah, and they are Torah only. It is not expressly put in the Torah that there is a heaven and that there is a hell, that there is a place of goodness and a place of badness. It is not expressly put that there's a resurrection from the dead or whatever. We deduce these things from Torah. For example, the Alechah, the sacrifice of Yitzhak, of Isaac. Why was Abraham so willing to sacrifice his son? Because he knew that God would raise him back up again. But the Sadducees rejected all of that. So this was a big issue. So because they do not believe in the resurrection of the dead, and that is one of their main tenets, and here Yeshua in front of the whole crowd raises this guy from the dead, that's why they say, because you yank out one pillar, what? It imbalances the whole system. Okay? It's like you have a bridge, and you take a column out of that bridge, what's going to happen? It's going to fall apart. Okay? So, well, he yanked that pillar out right in front of him. So they said, let's put him to death. Let's kill him. Okay, so he can raise somebody else, and maybe that was just something else they did not believe in was miracles. They said he raised somebody else, and maybe that was just a fluke or whatever. Maybe the guy wasn't dead, he swooned, he did this, he did that. So we'll kill him. So they killed him. By the way, who was it who put Yeshua on the cross? Who was it who executed him? Who demanded his execution? Mostly the Sadducees. Mostly the Sadducees. How do we know that? Because the Sadducees ruled the priesthood. They were the priests. Who was it that was leading this whole thing? Who was it that had him arrested, tried, put on trial, and executed? It was the priest. It was the Kohen Hagadol, the high priest, Caiaphas. Okay?
He was a Sadducee.
He was a Sadducee. It was the Sadducee party that did all of this. This is why, and it was the Prushim, the Pharisees. It was a split government, so that the Sadducees ruled the priesthood and the Pharisees ruled the Sanhedrin. Now the trial was before the Sanhedrin, but in Israeli government of that time, there were two Sanhedrin. There was the Sanhedrin Gadol and the Sanhedrin Katan. There was the great Sanhedrin, which consisted of the 70. The 70 dealt with national matters, religious rulings that the other courts could not decide, those kinds of things. So down here, if here in Texas, if somebody commits a murder or something like that, they do something that is worthy of death, where do they go to court? They don't go to the Supreme Court. Where do they start? In the district court. Okay? It is the district court and the district judge that sentences that person to death. So he would have been tried if he had been in Nazareth or Galilee, that area, whatever. He would have been tried by the local councils, and they would have put him to death. Because he was in Jerusalem, he's tried by that council. Because he has such a great following, and the people, the priests know that the people back him up, they're afraid of the people, so it takes it up to a higher level court. So he's actually tried, he's not tried before the great Sanhedrin. He's tried by the Sanhedrin Katan, the small Sanhedrin, because they, the 25, were able to decide death penalty cases. The thing about the Sanhedrin Katan is that you only have to have 25 people there, 25 men there. You only have to have 25 members of the Sanhedrin there for the small Sanhedrin. This is why the scriptures tell us that many of the Prushim, many of the Pharisees were not there when he was put on trial. He was literally put on trial by the Sadducees. The whole thing was executed by the Sadducees. They controlled the whole plot, the whole thing. Were there Prushim involved in it? Yes. But the majority party that did all of this were the Sadducees. And the Prushim, this is why Nachlimon, Nicodemus was not there, Gamliel was not there, Joseph of Arimathea, he's also a member of the Sanhedrin. He's not there. Why were these men not there for his trial? No one, you remember, no one protested on Yeshua's behalf. He stood trial alone. No one defended him. Why did no one defend him? Because none of those people were there, even though they were members of the Sanhedrin. Why were they not there? Because the Sadducees put this together to make a determined outcome. They were going to put him to death. So, the reason why I'm telling you all of this is, for the most part, we don't get this in church. We lose a lot of this perspective. So, you need both eyes. You need the depth of it. You get the picture. But now you need the depth of it. And that's basically what we do here is we try to put Yeshua back in his context, back in the setting. We try to put, Noah and the ark. It's not a cute little flannel graph boat, with the giraffe's head sticking way out and the elephant over here and the donkey over here and Noah the old man with the beard and he's standing up there with his staff and it's not this cute in the rainbow. It's not this cute picture. If you understand the ark, it was a most devastating event. And you understand that Noah and his family, only the 8 of them survived, and they lost all of their families, all of their friends, everybody, wiped out. Can you imagine if something disastrous happened to the world, and only 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're missing 2, we're the only ones that survive on the entire planet. We're all that's left. Can you imagine what that would be like? It was not a happy time. It was not a good time. You know, people blame Noah because he got drunk. You know, I know a few people that would get drunk in a situation like that. I know a few pastors who preach against Noah getting drunk who would probably get drunk in a situation like that. So, the ayin, the eye. To have one, good. To have two, best. To get the full picture, to get perception. Rav Shaul speaks to this in the book of Romans and in the book of 1 Corinthians. In the book of Romans chapter 11, he says that the Jews are partially blind. That's what he's saying. They are blind in part. And a lot of people coming from Christian background, a lot of people from church, miss that. And they have this idea that the Jews and that Judaism is completely blind. So, in Romans chapter 11, always have problems finding things. Okay, verse 25. Yes. Okay, so he says, for I do not desire, this is Romans 11:25. He says, for I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Goyim, the Gentiles, come in. So it is a partial blindness. It's not an absolute. It's not a complete blindness. They're not walking around with a cane and a tin cup and sunglasses on, unable to see in the spiritual realm. They do see. So, cover one eye. Go ahead, cover one eye. Salud. Can you still see?
Yes.
Not as well as with both eyes, but you can still see. So you're partially blinded. As long as you have your hand over your eye, you're partially blinded. But you can still see. This is what he's saying here. That they're partially blinded. Basically what he's saying, our accusation against the Jews is that they're blind and they cannot see. Rav Shaul says, no, they're partially blinded. They get the picture, they just don't have the perception that they need. But he also says the same thing about the followers of Yeshua, particularly the Goyim who have come in, the Gentiles who have come in. If you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13. This is the chapter of love. He says in verse 12, "Now I see through a dim mirror." The New King James says, "I see through a mirror dimly." The Old King James says, "I see through a mirror darkly." But then face to face. "Now I know," how? 1 Corinthians 13:12. "Now I know in part," saying what? I'm not getting the full, I get the picture, but I'm not getting the full picture. When you see through a glass darkly, when you see through a dim mirror, basically he is alluding here to the mirrors that they have of his time. The Roman mirror basically was like a piece of brass, piece of bronze, that would be highly polished. So if you have a piece of silverware, something like that, a piece of brass, an article that is highly polished, finely polished, you can see your reflection in it. But is it a good reflection? Or is it distorted? And any little ding in it, you know, it's like the funny mirrors at the carnival. You know, any little ding in it, it puts a dimple in your face, or it distorts your face, or whatever. So which is better, to look through a highly polished piece of bronze or a glass mirror, such as you have in your home today? It gives you more perception, right? More perspective. It gives you a greater view, a better view. This is what he's talking about here. So, why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this to say that we think that the Jews are blind. Paul says, no, they're only partially blind. But guess what? You're also partially blind. Neither side is getting the depth of it. Both sides are just looking with one eye. Saying what? We have to come together. We have to put the second eye back in its place. When we take what we know as the followers of Mashiach, and we take what the Jews know through their relationship with Hashem for all of these thousands of years, and you put it together, now you start getting a full picture. You get the picture, but you also start getting the perspective, the perception of it, the depth of it. And this is what is important. Now, one more thing about Ayin. Two more things about Ayin. The first will be the last part of Ayin, and then the last one will take us into Peh, if you understood that convolution. So, Ayin is two eyes. We talked about having the Ayin Tov and the Ayin Ra, the good eye and the evil eye. The evil eye not being somebody cursing me, but the good eye and the evil eye speaking of how do I perceive people, how do I perceive others? With which eye am I looking at you? Do I look at you with the good eye, or do I look at you with the evil eye? Saying, do I look at you with blessing, or do I look at you with cursing? Do I look at you with goodness, with gladness, with joy? I'm happy for you, I'm glad for you? Or am I jealous of you? Jealous of what you have, covetous, look down on you. When I see a beggar walking on the street, over here in the park, late at night, and I'm going through there, and I see a woman of ill repute walking through the park, and I know what she's up to. How do I perceive her? How am I looking at her? These are some of the things, by the way, which, if you choose to, we'll get into in the Tree of Life, is how we're supposed to perceive people. Because the way I'm supposed to look at that person, if I'm looking at that person, if I'm looking at a woman of ill repute with a good eye, I'm not looking at her as a woman of ill repute per se. I'm looking at her as a human being who has walked on the wrong path. That's the good eye. If I'm looking at her with the Ayin-Ra, then I'm looking at her, I'm saying, look at that woman, look at who she is, how can she be that way? She's disgusting, she's this and she's that. Okay, she is. But that should not be the eye I'm perceiving her, that should not be the eye I'm looking at her with. I should be looking at her with the eye of compassion. This is the eye with which Yeshua looked at the woman who was caught in the very act of adultery. They brought her to him. They were looking at her with Ayin-Ra. They were going to nail her. They were going to hammer her. You know, they're going to put her on trial and demand the death penalty for her. And they're hoping at the same time that they're able to catch him in something and be able to throw the book at him and do away with him, Yeshua. And so they bring this woman to him, and they tell him this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. Those are important words. Those are in the Israeli court system of that time, following Torah. Those are very important words, that she was caught in the very act. Because in the Jewish court, in the Israeli court of those times, a person could not be condemned on hearsay. Even if the person themselves confessed, they could not be condemned for the crime. There had to be a witness. And not only a witness, but there had to be at least 2 witnesses, and better 3. If you remember in the trial of Yeshua, this was the problem. That everything was hearsay evidence. Hearsay evidence was not permitted in the Jewish court of that time because it was following Torah. And Torah does not permit hearsay evidence. So you cannot say, in other words, when a person is put on trial, you cannot say, well, I heard so-and-so say this and this and this. I heard that this happened, I heard that that happened. Nor can you even say, I heard the person confess, I heard the person say that they did it. That is inadmissible evidence in court. Circumstantial evidence is inadmissible in the Torah court of law. A person could only be condemned by 2 or 3 witnesses. And you read this several times even in the Brit Chadashah, in the New Testament. So it is important when these men say, we caught her in the very act, saying why? They saw. They actually had to see her in the bedroom, in the bed with the man. That's all that was permissible. That's all that could be submitted as evidence. They had to see it happen. It's not even that they saw her, that she was in the house and they saw the man go in the house, but they didn't see anything happen. That would have been bad enough, and that would have been scandalous, but it would not be sufficient evidence. They had to actually see it happen. Now there's a reason why for that. In Judaism, it is better to let a criminal go free than to convict an innocent person in any circumstance, any situation. So very seldom was the death penalty ever used in Judaism. Well, a lot of people think that Judaism is this, you know, that Torah is this very bloody, very harsh. The reality of it is that their court system was actually softer than our court system here. Because here you can be put away on hearsay evidence, or you can be put away on circumstantial evidence without witnesses. And look at how many condemnation sentences have been overturned when the DNA comes out 20 years later and finds out that the guy's actually innocent. So it is better, according to Judaism, it is better that a criminal go free than that you execute an innocent person. Heaven forbid that we ever execute an innocent person. That would be the worst of all tragedies. And many would perceive that that would be worse than the crime itself. And so this is the reason why 2 or 3 witnesses are required. They had to actually see and testify, and they must be able to testify in agreement. This was the problem with the trial of Yeshua, that they could not come to agreement. And one person would say one thing, the other person would say, and they could not find 2 witnesses that agreed. They finally found the 2 who agreed that he said he would tear the temple down and build it up in 3 days. So, they bring the woman to Yeshua, and they say to him, we caught her in the very act. That's why it's worded that way. We caught her in the very act. They're saying we witnessed it, we saw this happen. Then they say, the Torah of Moshe says that such a person is to be put to death. What do you say? And here it is that Yeshua stoops down and he begins to write on the ground. There's many different visions of what it was he was writing. The truth is that the scripture does not tell us what he was writing, but he's writing something on the ground. And then he looks up at them and he says to them, let the one who is without sin cast the first stone. The reason is because the witness who witnessed the act was supposed to throw the first stone at the condemned person. They would put this person in a pit, and they would bring a boulder over to the first witness, saying, what? You better be sure of your testimony, because you're the one that's going to put this person to death. You're the one that's going to start this whole thing. So they would take the boulder, give it to the first witness. The first witness would throw the first stone. This is what Yeshua said. Okay, you are the witnesses. Who's going to throw the first stone? What he's saying in a subtle way is, who is not guilty of death? Who standing among you is not guilty of death? And it says that they all began to walk away, the greater to the lesser, the most important man to the least important man, and they all walked away. Then Yeshua turns to the lady and says, woman, where are your accusers? And she says, I have none except for you. And he says what? Those famous words, neither do I condemn you. Now, this is a bone I pick with a lot of Christians and a lot of pastors, because they stop there. And when we stop where he doesn't stop, it only gives us half the message. Yes, he said, neither do I condemn you. But then he tells her what? Go and sin no more. You cannot leave off the second part, or else you do not understand the compassion and the mercy. We were discussing last night in the advanced class that one of the things we're going through the Omer, and when I post the Omer count every night, it has a title on it, which is one Sefidah within another Sefidah. One attribute within another attribute. So there's mercy, there's chesed, shevet gevurah. That mercy is found in judgment. And the reason is because in every single attribute, in every single Sephirah, all of the other 10 attributes are found within that attribute, so that no attribute stands alone. It's not just that they're connected, they're actually within each other. So you have mercy in judgment, you have judgment in mercy. They're acting together. There's always two sides. There's always two sides. Why? That gives you the balance. So, if all I say is, Yeshua said to her, neither do I condemn you, what? That's just mercy. That's just compassion without the justice. But he puts the justice within the attribute of mercy by telling her, now don't do it again. We as parents do that to our children, no? Huh? You tell the child, you fuss at the child for doing something wrong, and then what? You forgive them, and you tell them what? Don't do it again. And that's what he's telling her. Now go and sin no more. So he's looking at her through compassion. He says in John chapter 3, he says, the Son of Man did not come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. And he tells us that we're to be very careful when we're making judgments about other people, because how we judge other people is the same way that Hashem is going to judge us. So when I see that woman walking down the street and I look at her with Ayin-Ra, with the evil eye, that is, I look at her without compassion, without mercy, and I'm making judgments about her, and I'm thinking evil thoughts about her, and these kinds of things, then I have to understand that this is the same way that God is going to look at me. You say, but she did this and she did that. Yes. Then what have you done? What have I done? You see, it's at times like that that we forget that little verse that says, for all have sinned and come short. We forget that. When I'm looking at people and they're doing wrong, should it hurt me? Yes. Should it touch me? Yes. Should it affect me? Yes. Should I get involved? Yes, in a way to bring goodness and righteousness. But when I look at that person and I don't see a human being, but I see a drug addict or an alcoholic or a streetwalker or this or that, and that is the term by which my mind conceives of them, that's the eye with which I'm seeing them, rather than seeing them as a fellow human being, then I am in the wrong. This is the evil eye. This is the evil eye. One of the things that the Tree of Life teaches as well is that we are all, the scripture says that Hashem said in Reshit, Genesis chapter 1, that God said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. And so God created man in his own likeness and in his own image, saying what? I am created in the image of God and in his likeness. But so are you. What we forget is, so is that woman of ill repute, and so is that drug addict, and so is that alcoholic, even the murderer, the rapist. Every human being is created in the image and the likeness of God. Meaning what? We all have his attributes. What is the difference? In you and me, those attributes are working within us and they're touching. They're moving us. They're motivating us. They're pushing us. They're driving us. And that person, somehow, somewhere along the line, there's been a short circuit. Whether they did it or somebody did it to them. Somewhere along the line, that attribute has been short-circuited. But that person is still created in the image of God. That is what we respect. It's not that you respect what that person is doing, how they're living, how they're acting, but you respect the fact that they have within them the image of God. And that is what is our mission, is to bring that out in people, to bring those attributes forth, so that they reflect the glory of God, even as we desire to do. So how we perceive people. We spoke last week concerning Ayin, that not only is it the good eye and the bad eye, but also that it is temporal. It is time-oriented. So you have one eye to the future, and you have one eye to the past. And I think this is actually where we were ending up last week when we were talking. You have one eye to the future, and you have one eye to the past. And where am I? Where am I? So we're caught in time. In which of these are you living? Are you living in the past? Are you living in the present? Or are you living in the future? Which of these are you living?
Present.
The present. Where are we? You start getting into theory of relativity, and you start getting into quantum physics, and you start saying, maybe not. Because what they tell us, what scientists tell us, is that actually we're here. What is the present? What is present? Now, but what is now? Because you see, even as I'm speaking, it's like a, you know, the old movie projector reels, the film going through, right? So as I'm speaking, what it is a little bit of me is in the past. I'm still a little bit there. I'm here. And I'm still a little bit in the future because we're moving through time. Time is passing. Okay? So we're moving through time. So the way quantum physics looks at it is that we're actually partially in the past, we are in the present, and we're partially in the future. We are not static. We're not in this one state position. It's constantly moving and constantly fluid. So we're moving through time. Saying that, our perspective is here. And we look back to the past. Why? Because those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. We look to the future. Why? This is our home. Even if you've had a bad day today, it's a new day tomorrow. And you can get up out of bed. And you can have faith, and you can have hope, and you can look for brighter things, better things. And so we have this thing going on. Now, we say that we're partially in the future, we're in the present, and we're partially in the past. The truth of the matter is this: from the beginning of my existence, I exist. What am I saying? Well, you see, time only affects you and me. Time only affects the realm of the universe, of creation. Those beings which are outside of the realm of the universe are not affected by time. They're not impacted by it. God is not impacted by time. He knows no time. This is why we call him the Ancient of Days. His name is what? I am he who was, and I am, and I shall be. This is the name. This is where we get the Yud-Ke, Vav-Ke, the name of God. Because he tells Moshe, when Moshe says, whom shall I say sent me? And he says, tell them, Yigeh Asher Yigeh has sent me. I will be what I will be. And this term Yud-Ke Vav-Ke is a combining, a crashing together of the Hebrew words for I was, I am, and I shall be. So he's not affected by time. He's not within time. He's outside of time, looking in. So have you, I'm assuming that all of us have been on an airplane. Did you get the window seat? Did you look down? Have you noticed that when you fly over a town, when you're up 20,000, 25, and you look down, you see what? What is your perspective from there? The whole city. When you're here on the ground, it looks very much different, because all I can see is what is here. All I can see is I can stand outside on the sidewalk there, and I can see maybe a half a mile down the street. 5, 6, 7 blocks. 5, 6, 7 blocks, any given direction. And all of my perspective is what is right here, the people, the buildings, all of these things, the cars, the streets. That's my perspective. Very limited in scope. But this is my world. A person who has never been on an airplane does not understand that perspective. They only know this world, this perspective, because they've never experienced the other perspective. But once you get up there, once you're up 10, 15, 20,000 feet, you can see the entirety of the city. You see the western, the eastern, the northern, the southern boundaries of the city. You see all of the traffic. You see the patterns at work. You see the little ants, the people walking around. You can even see out into the countryside. You see the little green John Deere tractor going through the field. You can see all that. I remember the first time I flew. I was flying from North Carolina, from Charlotte, North Carolina to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And just a short flight. And I remember the first time that I looked down and saw those little tiny cars going down the interstate. And what a wonder, what amazement it was to me. So what are we talking about? This is the way God, this is the perception of God, the perspective of God upon us. We're looking from a very limited view here. This is what Shaul is talking about in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. That I see through a glass darkly, dimly, I only know in part, because my perspective is only right here, what is in front of me, the present moment. But when God looks down, it's like he's in the airplane and he's seeing the entirety of the city. When God looks at your life, when God looks at you, he sees your life in its entirety. We look at our life as though it's a movie strip and it's frame by frame. And this frame is past. We're now in this frame. That frame is yet to come. And so we're passing frame by frame by frame by frame. We don't know what's coming in the next frame because we're not there yet. But when God looks at your life, He sees your birth, He sees everything. He sees your grade school, your junior high, your high school, college, your wedding, your children. He sees your grandchildren. He sees your old age. He sees your death, all as one event. Because with Him there is no past, present, or future. It's all one. It's one thing. Echad. It's all one. So this is the perspective of God upon us. When we understand this, we understand why and how it is in effect. If we could understand it, it better explains to us how it is that He is in control of everything. Because He's seeing everything as one single event. He's not looking to the past. He doesn't look over there and say, oh, well, that's their past life somewhere over there, and right here is where they are now, and that's where they're going to be. But He sees it all as one thing, one event. Your life. So He's in control. And everything is done by His will. He sees the day you're born and the day you die at the same time. He sees it all as one. So He controls your life. Everything is by His will. So that takes us to the last point of Ayin. This is God's perspective. He's looking at all of it at the same time. Something that you and I cannot do. He sees all of it at the same time. So He knows the ending. Not He knew or He will know. He knows the ending from the beginning. Because He knows how it starts. He knows how it ends. He's seeing it all at the same time. He's seeing your entire life right there in front of you. Just like you're looking down and seeing the entire city, not just the couple of blocks where you're standing. But now you're up in the air and you can see the entirety of it. This is the way He's looking at you. This is His perspective of us. So do you remember what was the letter that came before Ayin? And remember what Sadik is talking about? Remember it's cyclical? It's talking about what? The beginning and the end. And how everything is a cycle. What goes around comes around. Okay? So talking about Ayin, the eyes, what the reason the connection between these two, the reason why they're next to each other, is because these are the eyes of Hashem. And He's watching. Remember how we started this off. The Rav Shaul talks about the Jews being partially blind and talks about the Goyim coming in as not having understanding and seeing through a dim glass, a dim mirror. So we see, but we don't have a lot of depth and a lot of clarity. They see, but they don't have a lot of depth and a lot of clarity. But God has both eyes and He sees everything clearly. When we say, when we speak to this, that the eyes of God are upon us, not the eyes of Texas, the eyes of God are upon us, what are we saying? That He's watching us. What are we saying when we speak to this, that He's watching us? Well, two things come to mind. That He's watching me means that He cares. He's concerned. You don't look at somebody you don't care about. Okay? Unless like for some weird reason they have attention or something like that, but for the most part. For example, my wife has my heart. So I set my eyes upon her. Why? Because I care about her. I take in her loveliness and her beauty, the things that she does and the things that she says. And I watch her. I watch how she acts, how she lives, because these things are beautiful to me, they're precious to me. So I watch her. The other thing, the other thing that we need to consider is that when my mother would tell me, "I'm watching you," meaning,
Behave.
I've got my eye on you. I've got my eye on you. Behave. That he's watching me means that he cares about me, that he knows where I am. By the way, this is why the scripture can tell us that he answers our prayer before we ask. Because he's not seeing you the way you see yourself in this present moment. But he's seeing the totality, so he already knows what your need is. He already sees your tomorrow. So he knows what you're going to need for tomorrow. This is why we are told, don't worry about it. Yeshua said it, right? Your Father in heaven already knows that you need these things. How does he know? How does he know what I need? Because he can see. He sees the whole thing. He sees the totality of your life. So he can already see tomorrow. He can already see next week, next month, next year. He already sees it all. He knows what's there. And if you want to get into the depth of it, theologically and psychologically, he's put everything there. Everything in your life is ordained. It's there by the will of God. So when you consider this is why we are told, don't be afraid. Don't worry. Everything is already preordained and God already knows everything that you need. And he's watching. He's keeping his eye out for you. But also, be careful how I act and how I live and what I do and what I don't do. Because he's got his eye on me. He's watching me to see how do I respond to this event that he has ordained to be in my life, to this need, to this act, to this word, to these things. Everything in my life comes by way of the ordination, by way of the will of God. Everything in my life comes by way of the will of God. How do I respond to that? But because he can see the totality of your life, he already knows how you're going to respond. And so, if you fail the test, Tree of Life again, if you fail the test, you take the class over. So he's already got all your classes set up. These are the tests I'm going to send. He's going to fail this one, she's going to fail that one. I have to send them back through again. They're going to go take it 3, 4, 5 times. They're going to be in a test for 10 years. He has set everything up in my life. So what does that do for me? It should give me confidence and hope. Because Yeshua said, if you asked your father, you're hungry, you asked your father for bread, would he give you a rock? If you ask for water, would he give you a snake? And if your fathers being evil know how to do good for you, how much more your Father which is in heaven? Knowing what all things work together for good to them who love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose, saying, God is not doing anything for my ill, for my evil. Everything is being done for my good. And even though I cannot see what is in the next frame of my life, he sees the totality of it. And he has put everything in my life for a purpose, for a plan. My job is to get through that with grace, with joy, with humility. And then go to the next frame. So he's got his eye on us. He's got his eye on creation. He's watching everything that's going on. So the scripture says that the eyes of the Lord run to and fro across the earth. He's searching, 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 searching. What is he looking for? A righteous person. Is there any who is righteous in the earth? He's looking. He's watching. He has his eye on us. So this is Ayin. We'll take 5. Our next session will be about 30 minutes. We'll introduce Peh. How do we get from Ayin to Peh? So Ayin is the eye. Peh means mouth. So you have, it looks like the eye, but look. So it's kind of like the mouth. Okay, so Peh means mouth. So now you have kind of a sense of why Peh is next to Ayin. Because where's your mouth? Next to your eyes. So what does Peh have to do with Ayin? So when I see something, it gives me understanding. For example, the information that I have, the things that I know, the things that I know about. How do I know about these things? Primarily through sight, primarily through vision. I see it. That is, I read it. I saw a movie on it. I'm rather visual. So I'm also auditory. I listen to a lot of things, but I read a lot and I see a lot. I watch a lot. Because what are your eyes doing? Notice in the Ayin, we talked about this, we spoke about this last week. Notice the Ayin, you have the two eyes, and they have these two tubes here that come to this singular tube. And so what the rabbis say is what? How do you see? How is it that you see? Your eyeballs are connected to the optic nerve. And that's what this is. And where does the optic nerve go? The two eyes, there's a nerve at the back of each eye, and they join together into a single unit, into a single nerve unit, and they go into the brain. And this is how you perceive to see. All of the cool stuff, like we actually see upside down, because the reflection goes to the back to the cornea. And it's because it goes, when it hits the back of the cornea, it's actually upside down, and your brain actually reverses it and makes you see right side up. All kinds of cool things like this concerning the eye. It hits the optic nerve. The information goes through the optic nerve into the brain. Every second of every day, every second, that you're awake, that you're seeing, your brain is actually pulling in millions of bits of information. Color, texture, size, what have you. It's pulling all of this information and feeding it into your brain. And your brain is sitting there saying, keep that, keep that, keep that, throw that out, keep that, throw that, keep that, keep that, keep that. The brain is taking the information that it deems to be necessary. Because what your brain does is it tells itself stories. So your brain is there trying to figure out what is happening here. And so it's taking all of these millions of bits of information, but that information that it deems to be not of value, not of worth, it throws away because it gets in the way and it clutters. If the brain were to show your mind everything that you are actually seeing, they say it would drive you crazy, that you would actually not be able to see. So your brain is actually, it acts as a filter. And it takes only the information that it deems that it needs, and it pulls that in, and the rest of the information it throws away. Your brain takes that information and forms a picture. We spoke last week of this is why. This is why if you've ever witnessed an accident and you've had to give a report to a police officer or something like that, no two people see the accident the same. It's not only that we're looking at from different views, but it's also that all of our brains are wired differently. Therefore, you're seeing something, your brain has taken in information that my brain rejected. So you're seeing something that I didn't see. I'm seeing something that you didn't see. So this is how it's all working. As I said last week, your brain is also so magnificent. The brain is such a magnificent organ. I told you it's telling itself stories. Your brain actually makes things up. It imagines things. And it imagines things, it makes things up that as far as you are concerned, it is real. It happened this way. Because what your brain does is it takes missing information and it fills it in. It takes information that it feels is unnecessary and it throws it out. And the brain can actually cause you to see things not the way they are. Your brain can actually cause you to see things that are not there, as though they are real and they are there. My father, when he was dying, he had several mini strokes, and he could see people in the room. What were we talking about? Were they real people, or was this from his past? Or I don't know. But he could see people in his room. He would talk to them. He would see things. He would go back. He would have flashbacks to his childhood, to his young days. One day he was telling us that he was running along a creek bank that ran near his house up in San Antonio. One day he was describing a candy store for us that he used to visit as a child, but he was there. He was seeing it. He was there. Your brain can do things. Now, he was having strokes, so these things were being, but this is how powerful the brain is.
When my brother passed away, when I was 18, he literally died right in front of me as they were doing CPR. After he was shot, he was decided to go to the store. And I know from people telling me there was blood coming out of his mouth, there was blood coming out of his, right here in the chest. But like you said, the brain is so powerful because up to this day, I can't see it. I cannot see it. And my other brothers are like, it's a good thing you can't remember because it's a horrible thing to remember. And I want to see it. But up to this day, 20-something years later, or something.
You don't remember it that way?
I remember being there,
Mhm.
but I cannot see it.
Yep.
And I stood there for like 20, 30
Brain is
minutes.
protecting me.
Yes, and I still cannot see it
Yep.
at all. I mean, I can't see it. I can't see him, I can't see his, I know he's there, but I can't see him. I can see the people, I can see the ambulance, I can see paramedics, the cops, I can't see him. It's true. Anyways, sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. You're validating the point. I was sharing with them last week that when my boys were little, I bought them when Nintendo first came out. I bought them a Nintendo game, and this was the way we bonded. So after they had done their chores and their homework, and I would get home from work, and we would play. You know, they'd set up the Nintendo, and they'd want to play, and they'd ask me if I would play with them. So I would go and play with them. Well, I found out that playing Nintendo, playing video games like that, makes me nauseous, very nauseous, extremely. I will go outside and throw up, and I will be sick for hours if I play those games for very long. I can play for about 10 or 15 minutes, and that's it. And I found out the reason why. I was wondering, and so I started doing some research as to why I would get nauseous. And what they determined was that it is a form of motion sickness. Because what happens is we not only have the perspective of direct vision, but we also have the peripheral vision. You have all of this. So your brain, your eyes are taking in all of this information, and it's seeing it all, but everything doesn't register. The brain's throwing stuff out, keeping things and all like that. For the most part, you're keeping your direct vision, your front vision, and then the peripheral, it's kind of thrown away, so this is all kind of distorted over here, but your brain is still filling in all this information. Well, some of us are wired in such a way, our brains are wired in such a way that when we're playing video games, the brain is taking that image of the video game and it's trying to create a world out of it. It's trying to create the entire world out of that video game. And it becomes very frustrated because there's no peripheral. All of the action is right here to the front. And so the brain is actually trying to trying to fill in the rest of it the way it should be from what you're seeing in the front. And it causes motion sickness. It causes the inner ear and all to be affected, your balance and all of these kinds of things. And it will create nausea in people. And so after reading that article, I said, makes sense. So what do you take when you have motion sickness? Dramamine. So I went to the store and I bought some Dramamine. I'd never taken Dramamine before because I'd never experienced motion sickness before. I took Dramamine. I did not know, didn't read directions carefully, I did not know that it causes extreme drowsiness. So I'm sitting there, I told the boys come and say, Dad, can we play a game? I popped the Dramamine. And I said, okay, let's give it about 15 minutes, let the Dramamine work, and I'll play with you. The next thing I knew, it was like 2 hours later. I woke up, I was in the easy chair, and I was laying back, and I was snoring, and there was drool coming out of my mouth. And the boys were sitting there on the footstool, and they're just sitting there looking at me like this. So I never did that again. But this is the power of the brain. This is why I'm telling you, it makes up its own stories, it makes up its own world. This is how powerful it is. This information is taken to the brain. And you know the saying, information is knowledge. Information is knowledge. What you see, you know. So watch how this all draws together. We won't be very much longer. Watch how this all draws together. Remember when I was telling you the story of Yeshua and the adulterous woman? And she was caught in the very act of adultery. And what did I tell you about the trial? There had to be what? At least 2 witnesses who
Saw it.
actually witnessed the event. They actually saw the event happen. Why? Because seeing is information. Information becomes knowledge.
Makes sense too with the idea of having 2 witnesses, because if everybody sees different things, but if 2 witnesses, there's enough of it that's the same.
They have to
that you can
corroborate.
determine what was actually
Yes.
true.
Yep. They have to see, and this is the thing. They would be questioned. The 2 witnesses would not be in the room at the same time. They would bring one in, bring the other, and there had to be they had to say basically the same thing. I'm sure there could be like minor discrepancies or whatever, but they basically had to be able to tell the same story. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that even eyewitnesses, a lot of times the information is not correct.
Yep.
And you can go online on YouTube and you can watch videos where they do experiments where they set it up, and I seen one where they had this person rob somebody, like bump into them, steal something, I don't know if it was a wallet or what it was, a camera, and then run off. And then they would have the witnesses say what they saw, and you know, what color was her coat, and what did he look like, and they all had like different answers, even though they all saw the same thing.
Yep. How many of you have this, that you can see faces in things, like in tile? For me, this is like, it's one of my pastimes almost. Like, you know, you go to the restroom and there's tile on the floor and you're sitting there. Oh, look, there's a face. Oh, look, there's another face. And you see all these different, I find cartoon character faces or whatnot, not, you know, copyrighted ones. I mean, just images and faces in tile and concrete and wood, whatever. I see, this is because this is what your brain does. It takes information that you see and it's trying to apply it to something so that it can understand. So, information becomes knowledge. And this is the secret of Ayin. And this is the secret of Ayin going to Peh. Peh is the letter P, and it's also the letter PH. So it can be Peh or it can be Fe. Whether it is Peh or Fe, the same as Bet, and some of the others is whether or not it has the dagesh, it has the dot in the middle. If it has the dot in the middle, it's the hard P, no dot, and it's the PH, the F sound. These are called labials because they come off of the lips. P. They're also called, I forget what the other term is called, they're explosives. Because it's a P, so it's an explosive. It comes off of the lip. So you have Peh and Fe. So in Hebrew, we would say that the P and the F are the same letter, just whether they're similar. So you have the Peh. So the Peh is the mouth. Why? So how many of you know this term? See it?
Believe it.
See it? Say it. See something? Say something. So, this side of the room over here is teachers. Teachers talk a lot. Right? I should know. Teachers talk a lot. What do you speak? What do you speak? Teachers talk a lot. What do you speak?
What do I speak? English.
Why English? That's good. Why English?
So no.
Because you know it. How do you know it?
I learned
How did you learn it?
it growing up. It's around me.
But how? But how?
Oh, listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
But how?
Exposure, immersion,
Repetition.
seeing.
Context.
Listening,
So,
speaking, reading, and
You
writing.
witnessed it. You saw it. You experienced it. You speak what you know. Where this is going, see, you are a witness to the English language and to the rules of grammar and these kinds of things. You're a witness of these things. Because how did you learn? Well, basically you learned through seeing. You read and you were taught. We had this English teacher, her name was Mrs. Royce, Real Hundo, junior high, 8th grade. She was very strict, seldom laughed, seldom smiled, little short gray-haired lady. And when she would get mad, she would stomp her foot like Thumper. She got mad at me one time, upset, angry, or I don't know what to call it. My desk was right in front of her podium at the front of the class. And I was sitting there, I had my pen, because we took notes in that class. And I had my pen and I was clicking it, click, 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 click. And she got after me, she said, you know, I had a cricket in here last period sitting in that same spot. Apparently somebody was there chirping, and she says, now I have a pen clicker. But anyway, the first thing that we did in class, the first 15 minutes of class, she had notebooks at the front. Everything about English grammar rules. Notebooks that she had devised, that she had put together. Mimeographs. So she had typed all this information up. So we were required every day for the entire year, for the first 15 minutes of class, we would go up. I guess today they call that sponge activities, something like that. But you go up there and you get the notebook, and for the first 15 minutes you're writing the grammar rules. And you would work your way through the notebooks. And then she would stand up there and she would teach. And she would write notes on the board. And you're taking these notes. And then if there was time left after class, you started back into her grammar rule notebooks again. If you got everything done, do y'all remember SRA reading material? There was little boxes with cards with stories in them, and then you would read the story, and then you had to answer the questions afterwards or whatever, so you got to do that. But this lady was the English expert of all. They had people from school districts all over. If you had a question on English, you called her, you asked her. The high school teachers, the high school English teachers, the senior English teacher, would call her to come and explain some structure, some sentence structure, concept, or whatever. So she is actually where I got my understanding and my love for language was from her. And I know students, this was 50 years ago, 40, 45 years ago. I know there are some students that are friends of mine that to this day have her notebooks that they wrote by hand. So what I'm getting at here is through your eyes you're receiving all this information, which is knowledge. For what reason? So you can speak it. To say. From here to here. You take it in, you learn it, you comprehend it, and you put it back out there. This is what a teacher does. A teacher does what? A teacher takes all the information that they've taken in, and they turn around and what? They put it back out. They put it back out. In saying that, we're all witnesses. Now, if I don't know what I'm talking about, if I don't have the information, I don't have the knowledge, then I would just have to make stuff up. And it would be false information. It would be wrong information. It would be misinformation. because it's not coming from knowledge. So we speak what we know. This is what a teacher does in class. A teacher in class is speaking what they know. They're sharing their knowledge with someone else. So we're going to close with this, and we'll take Peh up again in full next week. But this is what John is talking about when he says that we saw these things and we are witnesses to them. And we say what we know. Talking about Yeshua. Saying what? John saw him die. John saw him put in the tomb. And on Yom Rishon, on the first day of the week, it was John who goes running in and sees that the tomb is empty. And it is John who is there in the upper room when he appears and says, Shalom Aleichem. Peace to you. It is John who's with Kepha, who's with Peter. They go up to the Sea of Galilee and they're out fishing and they see him standing on the shore, already cooking fish that he had not caught. John sees him ascend. By the way, May 21st would be the anniversary counting by the Omer, because the 31st, May 31st is Shavuot. He ascended 10 days before. So May 21st is the anniversary of the ascension. But because he says, we saw these things with our eyes, we witnessed them, and we tell you what we know. Those are very important words. Because remember, in the Jewish court of law, per Torah, there must be what? At least two witnesses. In the New Testament, in the Brit Chadashah, we have 4. There's 4 witnesses who are telling you what they saw with their own eyes. Each one of those is a story from their perspective. It's the Ayin coming out through Peh. It's the Ayin. The information is taken in. The knowledge is formed, and it's spoken out through the mouth. So you remember, in one of the first classes, I think it was the first class, but I've shared with you on a couple of occasions that in Judaism, I've told you that learning simply in order to learn, in order to know, is unacceptable. That in Judaism, the purpose for learning is dual, it's twofold. I learn in order to do, but I also learn in order to teach. Saying, no matter who we are, or where we're from, or what our background is, we are to speak to others what we know. We're to share the information. So the things that you have learned in this class, you should not just be learning them in order to learn them. You should be learning them in order for you to do them. But not only should you be learning in order to do, you also are called, Ayin goes to Peh. You're also called to speak it out, to tell others. Why? This is the information of God. This is His information. Why did he give us this information? To keep it to myself? No. To give it to you, so that you can turn around and give it to someone else. Why? Because information is knowledge. And what's the other saying? Knowledge is power. This is how we bring tikkun cha'olam. This is how we bring the healing and the rectification of the world about. You see, the more people who have the information of the right way of living and what it is that God actually requires of us, what He expects of us, these kinds of things, the more people have the opportunity to turn and do it right. And that's why we're here. So with that we say, Shalom,